Our signal is finally coming to fruition here, and that is giving much added confidence to what is very likely to happen over this next week to 10-day spread. And without further ado, we can just jump right into Bitcoin, actually following up on the meta signal setup right here. This one has indeed hit target number one. As always, target number one is a very, very high probability, just under 70%. Again, not 100%, but rather high indeed. And that was officially 87,250. So if you did take this trade, well, there is the most obvious and an easy take profit region. And of course, just a reminder here that these setups, they can take their time. You can see that this one fired off about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 days ago, and now just hitting target number one. That's what trading can look like a lot of the time. It's a lot of waiting, but at the end of the day, that's why setups are setups. And the stop loss right here, obviously certainly not hit. So as long as that isn't hit, well, the trade is still alive. And now we look towards the second target, which does have just under a 50% probability to be hit. That is 95,000 bucks. That's a big level as well, which we'll get to a little bit later. But before that, I do want to go back into our regular charts right here and acknowledge that the daily time frame is about to switch around for the price action pivots. This new indicator, which by the way, you can actually try out for free in the link in the description below for Teachable. Just find the price action pivots indicator. It's hidden within there, and you can use that same code trial in all capitals to try it out for 30 days free. And this one is now about to flip around if Bitcoin can essentially maintain above 86,500 bucks by end of day here. Assuming that that does happen, this is going to go from a bearish pivot to a bullish pivot, meaning that the low from Wednesday of last week is going to be the area of interest for that, and just be expecting, general upside as long as Bitcoin is above there. In fact, I would even say as long as Bitcoin is above yesterday's low, it's just better to be looking for some, short, medium term upside essentially, as we'll get into timing of this move in a moment. But I do want to show the other supporting evidence that does suggest Bitcoin, probably has higher here to go. Yes, the 200 simple is in your way at, to the upside right here. In fact, that's actually going to be aligning with the 2-day time frame price action pivot. But, if I had to bet on it, does Bitcoin likely break it? Probably yes. Again, we've been having a bullish bias coming into the end of this month, maybe even the first week of May as well. There are several other things to be aware of. Of course, the 2-day time frame fired off 1, 2, 3 drives of regular bullish divergence here, which, almost always will, I shouldn't say almost always, but very, very often will at least test that green moving average. And that's what we have seen actually thus far. And then that's going to be combined, of course, with the stochastic momentum that is now starting to align on all higher time frames. So if we go over here to CME, we can see that if we go over to CME and we can see, I just realized that's a weird sentence to say. Anyways, looking at the daily right here, not only has it played off of the same regression that has been governing the low since late February, but it continues to rise to the upside, showing upwards momentum as long as Bitcoin is above 82,650. So that is giving us a nice wide berth here. The 2-day time frame also coming to the upside, about to get into the bullish control zone for the first time in a long time, and also going to very likely upon tonight's confirmation break this long-term regression governing the highs since actually early December, assuming that Bitcoin can close above 77,650 by the end of today. That seems a little bit likely. Sorry, not today, but tomorrow. But still, seems rather likely to me. We'll see. I mean, but on top of that, we do see the 3-day time frame also suggesting upside as long as Bitcoin's above 81,000 bucks. 5-day time frame, which is closing tonight, will also cross the upside for the first time in actually a couple months as well, as long as Bitcoin is above 83,500 bucks. Looking good so far. The 10-day time frame, which is actually not closing tonight, so perhaps we won't go over this one, but all the other higher term timeframes are still positioned to the downside. So that to me tells me that this rally probably is not the rally that is going to bring Bitcoin back onto Valhalla, but it can certainly go, decently higher, as we've been suggesting for the past week and a half now, with Bitcoin unlikely to go below the early April lows before a move to the upside, probably into the mid to low 90s. Anyways, moving on from there, I want to once again acknowledge that the invalidation here is going to very simply be the low from, honestly, you could use the low of yesterday. If you want to go, if you want to go with the price action pivots, then you could use this low right here, 83,200, for maintaining a bullish bias, but ultimately, I think that you could probably front run that a little bit. That is to say that as long as Bitcoin is above that number, better to be betting on upside in the more, I guess, short to medium term. Again, keeping in mind the meta signal setup over here. Here's the thing, though. Oh, and also just one last thing as far as supporting evidence for further upside. We're seeing a definitive signal over here as well on the Tether dominance chart. This one finally confirming the rejection of that 200 moving average, also on a lower high with momentum turning down. And yes, indeed, we are going to have hidden which chart? Yes, there we go. We are going to have hidden bearish divergence as well, maintaining this overall downtrend. When we go to that same time frame, you can see right here the 5-day has made. Actually, sorry, I stand corrected. It did not make higher highs. So no, there will not be hidden bearish divergence, at least on this time frame. Maybe on a 3-day. 3-day had regular bearish divergence, and daily, same thing as well. So actually, no, it is not there. But still, I do look at this as a good signal that Tether dominance is likely to continue down. I think looking at the fib retracements here is probably a good exercise for this one to generate areas of interest for this one to come down. And of course, we expect Tether dominance to play opposite of Bitcoin and probably most cryptos. But the first area of interest is going to be 513%. I don't think that things are going to bottom there, although you probably do get a bounce there. The next sort of potential bottoming area would be 483, and then you got 455. Whichever one that Bitcoin, wherever we do see this thing bottom out at, however, I do not think we're going to get a continuation of new lows below the January lows that we saw this year. So I do look at this as kind of, not kind of, but it, unlikely to produce real continuation to the downside, which would imply, much more prolonged bull market here. But, over the next few months, does this come down and help out Bitcoin spot price action? Well, probably, yeah. I wouldn't be expecting new lows. So if you do see it back down around these lows, that's probably going to be really well correlated with whatever next major top Bitcoin puts in, whether that's a slightly lower high than the current high at $110,000 or a slightly higher high. I would have a really hard time seeing this thing actually break down, which would essentially confirm, Bitcoin, I guess, to the moon at that point. Obviously possible. My sort of opinion on that is not the end all be all, but I would have a very difficult time seeing that again due to the very high term timeframes. But I'll not go over the full rigmarole with the higher term timeframes in this video. We've done plenty of that over the past few weeks. Right now it's time to focus on the short and medium term as we're finally getting this definitive signal right here. Anyways, yes. Okay. So now let's talk about the timing of this, because there are some pretty compelling things that we have been looking at for quite some time now. One of them would of course be everyone's favorite chart, which is the witches chart, the moon chart right here. This one did fire off a bull moon, if you want to call it that. It always is funny, but it did fire off a bull moon recently last Sunday. Or was that last Sunday? Yeah, it was last Sunday, the 13th. And that does give us one statistics as to potentially what sort of a move we're looking at, and then two, the timing of that, because these moon phases, they have a set expiration date. It's about 15 days from the original signal. So this one would imply that this phase ends on the 28th of April. That's also going to align with something else a little bit later. But again, if if you have your reservations about using this, all I'll do is I'll just show you the results, and you can make the decision for yourself. But if you would have followed this strategy using the Quant Prime service to back test it, you can see that over the history of Bitcoin, it would have produced more profitable trades than not at just under 58%. And more importantly, the equity curve stays nice and up and to the right. So when we go into the trade analysis, we can see actually that the average winning trade returned about 14.25%. The average losing trade lost about 7%. So that gives us some numbers to be working off of. If we were to apply about 15 or 14% from the 13th of April, what would that look like in terms of price? That would put Bitcoin 96,000-ish bucks. I do think that certainly is possible on this move. Perhaps within that time frame as well, we do see another completely unrelated indication of that same time being relevant, and that is based off of the Fibonacci time extension right here, looking at the prior cycle high versus the prior cycle low, and we can see that the next projected date of relevance is going to be when? It's going to be very end of what's called this month is April. Yes. this April and the first week of May, somewhere around there. It doesn't have to be exact. You can see that, it has been pretty consistent in getting around the top, maybe not like the exact top to the T of pretty much all of these moves that we've seen throughout the past couple of years, and also some lows, or one low as well, I should say. But ultimately, it does suggest that whatever direction Bitcoin is approaching, that date at is likely to be a reversal around that date, somewhere around there within the vicinity of like 2 to 3 closures, or 1 to 3 closures, I'd say. So, if Bitcoin's rallying up into this region, which, based off of the moon signal and based off of the other technical signals that we were looking at, does seem more likely than not to me, probably going to be at least a local high, maybe even a trap scenario as well. So I do want to, again, put that on the radar here. We've been speaking about this for a while now, and I would still be kind of ringing the alarm bell with this, just because, at the very least, you're probably going to see a local high there. And I think a lot of people are getting maybe a little bit too excited about Bitcoin breaking this trend line. Holy shit, it's the trend line of peace and prosperity, and Bitcoin's finally broken it. Or I guess it depends where you draw it. Oh no, we drew it wrong, and it's actually right here. This sort of bullshit, which, yes, Bitcoin is breaking out of it and probably does work its way higher, but this does not imply that Bitcoin's going to go to like $200,000 or $500,000, whatever the fuck you're seeing across the internet. I'm not saying that it's impossible, but if you trade using this kind of shit, well, you probably already know it doesn't work or that well, at least. It's very, very ambiguous as to where you put these things, at least in my opinion. Of course, feel free to disagree. If it's working for you, I have no problem with that, man. You do you. It's all good. We can agree to disagree in this vicinity. Anyways, yes. So we've gone over all of this. Let's now talk about just some quick areas of interest for targets. We've already hit the 382 here, just around $87,500. Also, that of course MetaSignal's target right here. For MetaSignal's next major target is 95, and 95 does correlate quite well around the 618 fib here. That also is, if you recall from the moon signal, the average return for winning trades, again, putting you somewhere around this $95,000 to $96,000 region. And then, of course, along the way, you got the 50% level. That's always going to be an area of interest. That is just under $92,000. So perhaps a bit of a short-term pullback right there as well. So Bitcoin over these next, over this next week and a half, 2 weeks, whatever it ends up being, does it do something like this? Maybe come up into this region here, and then, again, at least I'm looking for a local high there. I think best case scenario, it does put in a higher low, maybe somewhere around here. Of course, worst case scenario, it just goes back down towards the lows, but at least for the short term / medium term, it does look like Bitcoin has finally decided on a direction here. So I do look at that as good. And of course, again, just acknowledging the price action pivot here to the downside. As long as Bitcoin's above there, it's safe, or safe-ish. It's just more likely to be expecting some general upside here on this slow trudge. But yeah, anyways, we've been getting a lot of questions about this price action pivots indicator. A lot of people, I don't know why this is always the question, but people always ask, or not always ask, but it's a very common question. Does it work on low timeframes? Does it work on high timeframes? Does it work on XYZ timeframe? Yes, the algorithm will work no matter what timeframe it is, whether it's a 4-hour time frame right here, whether it's a 5-minute time frame, whether it's a 1-minute time frame, whether it's a daily, weekly, monthly. All these time frames, of course, will work. It's just relevant to that time frame. As you can see right here, the 5-minute time frame. Showing where the current pivot is at. Obviously going to be different than the 4-hour and the daily, and so on and so forth. But yeah, like I said, you can try it out for free. It's a completely new indicator. It's very simple in concept, but very complicated on the back end, I can tell you that. And well, it's a pretty good filtering mechanism for maintaining a bias. As long as it's giving you a clear bias, you can run with that until proven otherwise. Of course, all biases get destroyed, or all trends get destroyed over a long enough period of time, but it gives you an objective area to be aware of when that actually does happen, and where it becomes, executable, if you will. Anyways, I think that's a good place for me to be leaving off. I'm actually very mad today. We're very mad, both myself and Elsa. We got scammed yesterday. We got fucking scammed. It was a good 420/Easter day, Easter Sunday, also kind of our anniversary in a way. And so Elsa, with great intention, wanted to buy a tickets for us for a Lord of the Rings in orchestra concert type thing, which I've really been looking forward to because I've been seeing these Lord of the Rings movies with like a live orchestra, and I thought, oh my god, that's fucking amazing. Really want to see that. Well, she found one, and we go there yesterday, and it was very bizarre production. I'll tell you that. Very, very bizarre production. Now, the music itself was very, very good. I will say it was good. However, the graphics and whatnot left a lot to be desired. I was thinking in the back of my mind, why are they using all this AI slop to fucking play out these scenes when you could just use the movies? Turns out when we come home, there is actually news about the original Lord of the Rings concert by Howard Shore, the original composer, being extremely mad about other fake promotions that have been going around and kind of presenting themselves as the orchestra, if you will. And it is certainly not official. And so we got scammed. We got fucking scammed by these orchestra fucks. Anyways, I'll sign off on that note before I say any more dumb shit. As always, I want to wish everyone the best. Take care, much love. And yes, indeed, we still have the 30-day free trials for pretty much everything going on, not just price action pivots, but also, of course, caretakers indicators, the quantum wave bands, and even the Quant Prime AI service as well. All right, that's enough shilling for one day. I'll see you in the next one. Take care.